Hi everybody, foXnoMad here, and today I want to help you travel smarter by sharing with you a segment from the latest episode of the foXnoMad podcast with my guest, Ellie Quinn. Now, Ellie was a guest on the podcast a couple of months ago when she was in Indonesia, quarantining due to COVID, but since that time she's been to London and now has moved to Istanbul, converted to Islam. So I figured that would make for a pretty interesting episode to ask her what brought her to that conclusion, what that conversion is like, what it entails, how her life has changed, and so on. I think you'd find it very interesting as well. So I wanted to share with you this little video segment from the episode. But if you want to check out the full episode, that's down in the description. I think you'll enjoy the entire contents of the podcast. But for now, this is just a small segment. I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button down below while you check out the comments, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this segment. All right, and we're recording now. Thanks again, Ellie, for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me back.
So this is kind of a flip in the sense that now you're in Istanbul and I'm not in Istanbul. But I guess last time we spoke, you were in Indonesia, and
Yes.
that was I think in May. I want to say that, around then.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
So what happened between May and now? Just how have your travels, where have they taken you?
Yeah, so I stayed in Indonesia until July. So I was there for 4 whole months in the end. And then I decided to go back to the UK for summer. Things were starting to open up a little bit in the UK. So I was actually back for 2 months, and kind of the perfect 2 months because there weren't really any restrictions on meeting up or lockdown. So I got to see a lot of friends and family and spend some time in London. And then I moved to Turkey. So I moved here in the middle of September, and I've been here for 2 months now, and I've got 1 more month left. So, I mean, not too much compared to like my usual travel schedule, but still a lot more than some other people. So still very lucky with how that's all worked out for me.
And Turkey, because it's one of the few countries that's open, or any other reason?
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the reasons. It was, yeah, one of the countries that was open. I feel like there's been like a running joke at least a few weeks ago that bloggers never in is either in Turkey or Mexico. But yeah, Turkey for me, but also I had wanted to live in Istanbul for a while. I feel like that was on kind of like my mental bucket list because I'd been here twice as a tourist, but just for 3 days each time. And I liked the city, but I didn't love it. But I knew that there was like so much more here to explore, and I knew it was a good place to live. So then I figured, okay, COVID's obviously going to stop like the traveling, moving on fast. So let's try and like tick off some places I want to live. And yeah, so I'm doing that right now, and I'm really, really happy with it.
So I want to talk about the city and Turkey in general for obvious reasons, just because I live there and love it. But you've had a bigger change, I think, in between the last time we
Yes.
spoke. Which is you've converted to Islam.
Yes, yeah, when I was back in the UK as well. So that was the end of August. So it's been a couple of months now that I've been a Muslim. So yeah, I think we must have spoken because I did fast for Ramadan. And I was learning like a lot about Islam during that 4 months that I was in Indonesia. And then when I got back to the UK, I'd kind of made my decision at the end of my time in Indonesia that I like wanted to do my Shahada, but I also wanted to come back to the UK and just, I was very much living in like a bubble in Indonesia. And obviously it's an Islamic island. I had the Quds prayer like all 5 times a day. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure like I definitely wanted to. And then when I got back to the UK, I just felt like exactly the same. And so I did it at the end of August. And then a couple of weeks later, I also moved to Istanbul. So that was also another reason for, I guess, I have a lot of friends in Mexico right now. So I guess for me, it probably was the like Turkey or Mexico thing. And then I think like on my journey right now of like learning more about Islam and just kind of like incorporating much more into my life, then Turkey obviously was a much better choice for that.
And so it really started in Indonesia, or I mean,
a little bit before that in Saudi Arabia. So I was in Saudi Arabia for January and February this year, and I like stayed with the family through couch surfing. I think we might have spoke about couch surfing perhaps, and I met yeah, local family there, and they just had like a really big impression on me. And I also just went to Medina, which was very random at the time, but also had a huge impression on me. And then, yeah, found myself in kind of like a lockdown situation, like on an Islamic island. So, yeah, the start of the year in Saudi definitely like planted a seed, and then the 4 months in Indonesia where I did have like a lot of time really just gave me that time to learn. So, I'm really so thankful for the quietness of this year in that sense, because I feel like I never would have had time to learn as much as I did without COVID and without, this lockdown of everything. So alhamdulillah, I'm very lucky for that. And yeah, that's what happened.
And were you religious before, or what was sort of your, I guess, philosophy before you converted?
I would have said before I was like a spiritual person. I would have said that for the last couple of years. I mean, I was christened when I was younger, and like used to go to church with my family a little bit, but I didn't really follow the religion. I think that's the case for like a lot of people in the UK, which is a bit of a shame. And I would have said for the last few years, I was very spiritual, more like new agey things, but very much like a believer of like the universe. And so I wouldn't have said that I didn't do like a full from nothing to, full then going into religion. I feel like, and actually the more I learn about Islam, the more I realize like I already believe this anyway, or I already do this anyway. It's just that now I feel like I have something to like actually have rules to follow, and there's actually something, because the thing is when you believe in just like the universe or things like that, there's not an actual book for it, there's nothing directional, whereas now I feel like I have like rules of things that I need to do, and it's more accountability, and it's not just all about myself either. I was just speaking to a friend about this morning actually, about how a lot of the new age things are kind of very much about yourself, whereas Islam especially is there's a lot of kind of like sacrifices that you have to do, and things you have to stop doing, and things you have to start doing for the religion. So yeah, that's kind of how I was before.
So I guess my question would be, you're from the UK, so why Islam as opposed to Christianity, in the sense that, they're both, organized religions, they both have their rules and texts and all of this. So I'm just curious as to why Islam as opposed to Christianity, which maybe is more in your background or is growing up, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of, I guess, other reasons for that. But if I just say like surface level reason is that I think in a way, because I did grow up, so I feel like a lot of people you grow up with a religion, you then are just not attracted to it. I don't know, I feel like in a way, because it was in my life and I was never like really pressured, but if I think back, at school, you kind of sing a lot of hymns and you are kind of told to believe in this. But then, and I feel like in a way it was something different. I don't know, I feel like that has got something to do with it. The fact that it was in my life before, but not properly. And not very strongly either, and even like the people around me, or even as a country, I feel like we're not very, there's not a huge amount of really strong kind of Christians. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, but yeah, I feel like in a way it was because it was in my background and growing up with it. That was also maybe what did put me off in a way.
So yeah, I mean that makes sense. But now, when you converted and then you told your family and friends, what was their reaction?
They were fine. I mean, they were definitely a little bit surprised. Just, Islam obviously is a very foreign religion to people in a lot of countries. I guess for me, because I traveled so much, it really isn't a foreign religion. I've seen it in, South Asia, in Pakistan, in India, also in, Malaysia and Indonesia, and then in the Middle East, in Arab countries. So I know that, Islam is not all for Arabs either, where it's just a lot of people's misconception that it's just for Arabs. But then, you go to Indonesia, it's the most Muslims in the world. So I knew that it wasn't like a foreign religion to me, but it definitely was to them because they haven't traveled. But overall, they were just happy that I'm happy. And, my dad just told me, I'm just glad that you have like a faith in something. And I can definitely appreciate that answer now as well. It just feels so nice to actually yeah, have a belief in something. And especially after this year, I mean, it's been such a crazy year for people, and especially kind of going back into lockdown and really not knowing what's happening. It's given me a lot of comfort and a lot of peace.
So, and did they have any idea that you were thinking of converting, or did you just, what was the process of sort of just telling everybody? What was that like?
Well, yeah, they did know that I had fasted for Ramadan. And so I guess that was something. I mean, a lot of people thought maybe just because I was in Indonesia at the time and I was just like joining in with like the local custom, which was kind of part of it, but it was also more because at that time I was learning a lot about Islam. And I mean, they follow me online as well. So, and I've been sharing that I, read the Quran during Ramadan as well, which is obviously not what someone would do if they were just fasting for the sake of it. It took me a lot of dedication and many hours each day to finish it. And yeah, I told them a little bit before anyway, when I got home, that I wanted to do it. And then, yeah, after I went to London and I said it, I just told them a little bit more. But yeah, I also, I travel a lot and live abroad a lot as well. And so most of what I do, they also just see online. So, and I'm very like transparent online, especially now I've created a second Instagram account where I share more of like my rebirth journey on there, as well as the Wandering Quinn travel account. So they're seeing everything that I do, and hopefully, I feel like I've kind of realized that to kind of show Islam to people, like you really have to, like they have to see it in you. And so even for me, being in Saudi Arabia, like, the family that I stayed with, they weren't really telling me about Islam. Like if I asked questions, then they did. But really for me, it was like they were the example of what a Muslim is like and what a Muslim family is like. And that's how I learned from that. And I think if you have family or people around you that don't, are a bit worried about you becoming Muslim or something, then the best way to show them what the religion is by your example. So I feel like that's what I'm just trying to do right now.
And what were some of the first questions that you got? I guess after the reactions, the questions start coming. So what are those questions like?
I think like family, when you revert, are mainly just worried about you changing as a person, especially obviously like outward appearance. Like I've heard that some people, especially obviously when you're a woman and you say that you've become Muslim, they think then you might just put on, a burqa straight away, like head, face, whole body covered. And it's really like, no, it's not really like that. And like not even all Muslim women obviously wear like a full burqa anyway. But a lot of people don't know that, especially if they don't know any Muslims or aren't in living in an area with many. So I think that's the main thing. Obviously, there's also the questions of like, did you get forced into it, or was it like, terrorism and all this kind of thing? But yeah, I was lucky not to have any of that really. I think I had like one comment that was from my brother, but he was fine with it. He's just a little bit younger. So yeah, I think generally like with families, and I think the other thing that I found as well, I kind of did this, but if I did it again, I would do it a little bit different. And I've been telling people the same, is that I think it's good to like explain. And it's not just a case of like, I want to become Muslim, or I'm going to become Muslim, or I just became Muslim. It's like also explaining like, what does that mean? Because yeah, like my family don't know what that means. They don't really know any Muslims. So, I think with anything and any change, if you just tell your family, I'm doing this, I'm becoming this, I'm changing to this, if they don't know anything about it, like you have to be the person that then explains like, and this is what it means. And maybe that's where some people go wrong. And then that's why, yeah, because you do hear, I mean, I've had so many terrible stories of people that have become Muslim and their family have just completely, disowned them and have been really, really angry. So I'm so lucky that that hasn't happened to me. My family are very understanding, but yeah, I think explaining, and even to your friends, just explaining what that means is really key.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people who aren't familiar with Islam see it as kind of this monolith. This is just one thing. Whereas in Turkey is a great example. I mean, you have people who are religious, who are not, who are somewhere in between, and who, like any religion, like any belief, pick and choose what they, want to believe, or the things they want to follow, where the exceptions are. I mean, clearly alcohol in Turkey is a pretty big exception, right? So,
Yeah.
if you're talking about Islam. So, I think there's a little bit of that too, right? There's different interpretations or different, I guess, approaches to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and definitely country dependent as well. You know, people that are, you know, living in Saudi maybe as Muslim are going to be having doing different things, or you know, within Indonesia, and obviously that's also governmentally and stuff like that as well. So yeah.
So the term, and I've noticed you've used it, and I've seen it in some of your videos, revert as opposed to convert. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, people use both. So I've spoke to some people that prefer convert and some people prefer revert. I feel like I don't say convert just because I feel like I don't think this is like set rule. This is just my kind of opinion of it, is that if you say I was Christian and I was kind of like a practicing Christian, and then I converted to Islam, I think that would be maybe a term that I would be more comfortable with. But I feel like because I didn't convert necessarily from one practicing religion to another, that to me just is a word that doesn't feel like relevant. But I know to some other people it does. Whereas me, revert, I mean, it said that you say that you're a revert because everyone was born Muslim and then they choose after that. I mean, that's not something I've kind of got my head around necessarily myself, but I mean, yeah, I guess you have to use the word. So for me, revert just sounds more appropriate than convert.
And what have the reactions, I'll start with Istanbul, if you've told people in Turkey, I'm going to guess it's one of two reactions, but I'll see if I'm right or wrong. But what are the people, you know, in Turkey, when you meet people and you tell people, how do they react?
I mean, to be honest, I guess I haven't really spoken to that many people. I mean, one thing that I have really enjoyed about living here is just how, you know, open, at least to me, it feels like a very open city. I mean, there's people from just so many different countries. So, I mean, I had a real worry of like going into mosques and then people saying like, you can't be in here, like you're not Muslim or something like this. And obviously when I go into a mosque, like I've got my hijab on, I'm like fully covered. And so you can only see my face. And even now we have the mask, so you can literally just see, you know, the eyes anyway. So you see like a tiny bit of white skin perhaps. But, you know, no one is, I mean, there's so many people here from so many different countries. You could be from, you know, I could have been from an Islamic country, I guess. So, yeah, I feel like in that sense, there hasn't really been any judgment because I feel like it is just such an open country. And then really, I guess, because I don't wear hijab, that's at the moment anyway, that's people don't know unless I do tell them. So I've had a few people that are surprised. I mean, for me, you know, the amount of people who are Muslim and then when they find out you're Muslim are just so, so happy, which is, you know, it's so amazing. I've had so much support, obviously, especially online as well, from Muslims like all over the world, which has been really nice. But yeah, I can't really say because I haven't had that many situations with people, I would say. But what would you think people would say?
Those two things. I think surprise would be one. And I think surprise would come from the people who are maybe less religious or maybe take a more secular view, I would say. And then the second reaction, I think, would be excitement. You know, just really excited, and just, okay, let's talk more about religion. So I think those are the two reactions, but it seems like those are the two reactions that you've gotten.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And especially again, I feel like because of COVID as well, everything's been much more online. And so definitely, you know, especially from people here in Turkey, just really happy. I mean, I did a YouTube video about me moving to Turkey as a new Muslim, Istanbul. And yeah, had a lot of people from Turkey and Istanbul comment on that and follow me on Instagram, and just really happy that I'd also chose like their country and city to be like a new Muslim in. So that was really nice.
And how has you know, I guess the flavor of Islam, you know, compared to Saudi, to Indonesia, to Istanbul, which is pretty much its own country outside of Turkey, really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen some of your videos. You've been to Rize, you've been some other places. Istanbul is its own thing, you know?
Yeah.
So
I've got on here really, really, I've got on here really well. I think Yeah, I just felt it very accepting, and I feel like because it is such an open city, you see women that are completely covered up, and it seems like, again, from my opinion, this may not be the case, but it seems like that's fine, that's accepted, that they're completely covered, that's okay. And then you see girls, especially, a few months ago when it was warmer, in very small outfits, and that seems like that's okay as well, and people in between, and guys as well dressed in different ways. And it seems like, at least, that people do kind of coexist very well, and it's, if you want to dress like that, then you can, and that's okay. Where it's obviously very different, definitely different to Saudi in that way, where there is a regulation on what you can wear. I'd say it's, from what I've seen in Indonesia, it's very open, a lot more open like that as well. And for me, the hijab thing has been really good here as well, because obviously I know that a lot of women wear hijab here, but then I'm also aware that some don't and many don't. So there's been times where in the summer I was wearing it, and then I just had like a bit more of my arm showing, which I maybe wouldn't have been keen on doing in other countries, because it feels like you're kind of maybe contradicting that. But for me, I need to like get used to it in my own way, and I feel like I've been able to do that here without any judgment, and so that's been really nice for me. And I think the best thing that's, like, people have been told me, like, you started with the best country for this, but is the women's areas in mosques as well. Istanbul, well, Turkey, I think general, but also Istanbul specifically, it's fantastic that there seems to always be a women's area either at the back or there's a separate room, but most of the time it's at the back, and it's a very like clear designated area. And I've even heard, even in the UK, there are some mosques where women are just not even allowed in, which is like really terrible, I think. So for me, to know that I can pretty much go to any one of the mosques, and especially the bigger mosques. Obviously, I know the more local mosques in the neighborhoods up on the hills, maybe a little bit different, but that's fine. And I haven't really gone to them because I can just pray at home, like just as easy. But if I'm on a day out, then it's nice for me to know that I can go into the mosques. There's always a space, and there's a lot of other women praying in there as well, which is nice for me as a new Muslim who, again, with COVID, there are so many countries where people can't even pray right now in mosques, or I hadn't prayed with anyone really until I came here. So you even have the doubt of like, am I even doing this right? Like, because you just learn on my own on YouTube. So at least coming here, I've been to a few, like I've been to Friday prayer a couple of times. So yeah, that's been really, really incredible. And I think I'm hoping I'm going to have good situations in other countries as well, but I have been told that I've started with the best in Turkey. So we'll see how it goes from here. But I'm very thankful for that as well.